Thank you so much. I'm gonna give us one more minute to settle down and sit down. All right, there in the back. We're about to start. All right, Sandra. I'm waiting for my friend Sandra Campos to come and see. Let's go to her on that side of it here. Okay, so, hola, bienvenidos. Welcome to the Hispanic Promise 3.0 2024 session. It is really exciting, and the reason why we're here is to celebrate the progress we're making as Latinos, particularly advancing in the initiatives that we have, but also to look forward at what we have. It is an incredible opportunity to have a panel discussion today with two incredible leaders, Hernán Sáenz from Bain Company and Sid Wilson, the president of ASTER, the Association of the Hispanic Association of Corporate Responsibility today, World Human Foundation. And the three things that I think that we want to cover with you today, we have three objectives. One is understand the power of this incredible new tool that we're launching this year, Turbo. For those of you that have been here, and by the way, can I just start by saying a round of applause for Microsoft for hosting us year after year. Thank you so much, Microsoft, for doing this. We want to understand the power of this new tool that we have. And when we launched it a couple of years ago, it was like a bicycle. But I want to make sure that you understand that the power of the tool that we presented to you is comfort. From bicycle to comfort. So get ready, fasten your seatbelts. The number two is to share how companies can unlock this incredible untapped community called the Latino community, Latino, Hispanic, Latinx, whatever you want to call us, it's fine as long as you pay us well, it's all good. But we want to make sure that you understand how to navigate and how can we articulate a narrative that is bulletproof. That is bulletproof for the backlash that we have from the anti-EIs that are out there, and that we can make sure that all of us are in shelf of the Latino community, so that what the Hispanic community, you understand, this is about prosperity, power, and progress. One thing that is really important about the Hispanic Promise is what the framework. The Sustainable Development Goals or global goals are the 17 goals that have been adopted by 193 countries and more than, I would say, 80% of the companies that are here in Davos. And we did not want to have a separation of the tracks between the diversity, equity, and inclusion and the sustainable tracks that you have. So we're anchoring the Hispanic Promise in the Sustainable Development Goals, and we're measuring systematically where is the Latino community in that Sustainable Development Goals. We're measuring where are we in gender equality, how are we doing, so that you can see what are the initiatives that you can pamper and tap into that are going to advance those needs. What are the key initiatives that are going to leapfrog the things that you're doing on equity, diversity, and inclusion to move forward those sustainable goals, and also ultimately so that you can report on those too. So the Hispanic Promise is a pledge, and it's also a framework, and the framework that we're going to present to you today. I just want to give you a little bit of context. That we launched, Sid and I were here in 2019, launching the Hispanic Promise in its first iteration. It was a little bit more thin than what you're going to see today. And I remember we were in this stage, and Brad Smith, the president of Microsoft, was hosting us, and I was like, and the Hispanic Promise that we're launching today, we want to have 100 companies pledge in 1 year. And he was like, he was like, companies that have something. And with the new turbo engine that we have thanks to Bain, we hope that we can, this is the new goal, we want to get to the 1,000 companies within the 2 years. So from 320 companies, we're committing ourselves to reaching the 1,000 companies. And this initiative is backed by the most important Latino organizations, most of them present here, from SHIPE to ALFA to the Hispanic Association of Corporate Responsibility. So it's pretty much the room where it happens when it's advancing Latinos in corporate America. So the thing that I want everybody to understand is what is possible if we do this together. What is happening is we're getting momentum, but what will be possible? So imagine if we can create a world where Latino students feel hopeful about their future. Imagine a future when we can inspire Latinos to join our organizations and our teams where they can say, like, I want to work in that organization because if I can see it, I can be it, like the ones that I've seen in the senior positions. Imagine if we grow the next generation of leaders within our ranks and we engage them in meaningful career and roles. And imagine if we can honor the contributions of our ancestors and their heritage and the wildest dreams that our grandparents and parents have for us, because most of us are first generation of students, first generation that are in corporate America, and imagine that we can honor their dreams and their sacrifices by making it, by representing and by being in leadership positions. And what about imagine that through all of these, we're able to support the communities where we are prepared, that we can all grow. And that is going to be a great thing for everybody, because Hispanic progress is American progress. But I want you not to only imagine it, but just to do it, and that's exactly what the Hispanic Promise is all about. So our mission with the Hispanic Promise is to equip, literally step-by-step, organizations, companies, so that they can make the change and the advancement for the Latino strategies, and that will be a win-win-win for everybody. And we want the Hispanic Promise as a vision for our community to be a first of a kind, a national pledge to prepare, hire, promote, retain, and celebrate Latinos. And with that, I would like to pass it on to Hernan Sáenz, who has taken this under the Bain umbrella and literally lifted up from, again, being a little bicycle to being the conqueror that it can be today. But basically, no, I think I have to, yeah, that's you. Yes,
thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, I'll start by thanking Claudia for letting us partner with you. It's been inspiring for me and for my team and for everyone at Bain. I'll thank all of you for being here, actually, in order to make not only a promise and a framework, but a movement. We all have to be together. And getting together in the important stages is the way we're going to do it. So thank you. You know, I was here a year ago. Claudia was presenting the Hispanic Framework. And as I'm looking at everything, I'm thinking, I started as a Bain group to do how we started working. The third thing is, what do we do at Bain? We transform companies, right? They're doing A, we need them to do B, right? This is a transformation journey. Just by saying it, it doesn't happen. You have to think how you're going to do it. You have to plan for it. When adversity comes, you have to fight the adversity. That's when you make progress. So that's how we got together. The Hispanic Framework 2.0 was amazing. You have it in front of you. It's amazing, right? It actually anchors itself in the framework that the world is using to think about the future of the world. Right? It has a BHAG, so it literally is thinking really big about what we need to do. And yet it goes into detail. It literally says we need to change here, 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 and that's why we have pillars. And it's great. And by the way, why do we need a framework? You're all at Davos, right? How does every meeting at Davos start? We have made a massive commitment. We are not making progress. Every meeting at Davos, right? That's why we need a framework, because it's relatively easy to commit, to sign up, but it's very, very hard to change the way we're doing things, particularly when systems are set up to do this. Now, the Hispanic Framework 2.0 did a lot of things already, so we had to build on it. Right? It had 300 plus organizations. And by the way, as we went out to meet those organizations, progress was being made, which is terrific. But in a transformation, you can't just say, I'm going to set it up once and I'm going to let it roll. No, you have to learn. You have to learn what's working, what's not, how do I go faster, right? What is somebody else doing that I am not doing? And so the moment when you go from 2.0 to 3.0 is a learning moment. It's learning what were those 300 companies that are signatories doing, and what do they wish they had done differently. And basically, we got 4 messages from the companies that were both making progress, but at the same time frustrated that they wanted to make more progress. The first thing they said is, the vision, the North Star, has to be clearer, right? We need to go to something, what does it look like? What does it look like in a detailed way? So that we can inspire people, so that we can set goals, etc. So that was one thing we had to do. The second one was, I don't know my starting point. Even if I paint the beach of where I'm going, I don't know where I'm standing. So how do I assess my organization? And, some of these organizations are enormous, hundreds of thousands of people. Like, how do I get my hands on what is actually happening and not happening? The beauty, right, of course, of knowing where you want to go and where you're standing is that you now start finally understanding the gap, right? So the third thing is, if I have a gap, can you give me tools? So the third thing we started working with is what works? What works? And by the way, this is not just a promise, not just a framework, it's a community. And guess what? In a community, there are people succeeding in different places. And the beauty of a community is that can be shared. So a toolkit can be built. And the last thing is, transformations are hard. They're really hard. And by the way, they usually start up quick, but they also die quick. And so the last thing was trying to codify what is it that is working to keep the momentum going. And again, it wasn't done in a lab. It was done by talking to signatories. What is actually working for you? What are the challenges? What do you need to break through? So let me tell you a little bit about the framework that is now being rolled out today. We have literally said, for those companies that are best in class, that are doing amazing, what does amazing look like? And not at a really high level, because at a really high level, it's fun to hear, but it doesn't help me change our organization. So for example, amazing organizations that are helping prepare Latinos for hiring, for the workforce, what are they doing? Right? They map out skill sets. They actually go to the institutions that are training Latinos, and they talk about those skill sets. Where there is no funding, they provide scholarships. So there's a partnership outside of your organization. What about hiring Latinos? Well, if you go to the same sources that you used to source in the last 30 years, and you do the interviews in the same way, guess what you're going to get? The same outcome you had. So what do the best organizations do? They immediately say, no, where do I actually go? How do I get Latinos excited about applying to me? How do I get Latinos doing the interviews so people can see themselves 20 years from now? So that's what it looks like. And in promotion and retention, you can imagine what good looks like, right? Organizations that are retaining Latinos, that are promoting Latinos, they have sponsorship programs, they have mentorship programs, they have actually leadership development programs, right? They've done all types of things to set up and give the same opportunity to everyone. And celebrations are actually purposeful. And they happen both at the micro level and at the macro level. At the micro level, you might celebrate somebody's promotion. And that means a lot to a lot of people. At the macro level, you might actually report on the numbers. How am I doing versus my targets? How many Latinos did I hire? How many did I promote? How many sit on my leadership team? And you can celebrate, and as you celebrate, you create momentum. And the last thing is organizations that are doing great are also extending outside of their four walls. Right? And so they're beginning to actually tap into that great entrepreneurial community that is Latinos, having suppliers, having distributors, having dealers, etc., that actually become part of their ecosystem. So first thing we were able to do is literally say, this is what good looks like. Now, as I described this to you, you've realized that the pillars are interrelated. If you want to promote people, you don't start on year 7 and say, oh, it's time to promote Jose or Maria. The day Jose or Maria walks in the door, that's the diagnostic of this. And how do you make it detailed enough that it is actually helpful? And so what we did was work with the signatories and say, how did you do it? And as we learned a lot from the best practices, we actually built a diagnostic tool, an assessment tool. This is just an example for the pillar called promotion. And as you can see, we looked at all the levers. What data do you need? What analytics do you have to do on that data? What types of training programs do you need to have?
What types of equitable processes and programs actually need to do this? What parts of the culture support it? So do you have the elements? And then on the horizontal axis is how are you doing on those elements? Here we use the good, better, best, but if you really want to get a sense for what good, better, best means, let me describe it the following way. Good is when you have installed it. You think of a gym, you put the machinery in the gym. If you think about the Hispanic process, we have a strategy and we have put in the programs. Better is when the results are coming out. You are starting to realize the progress. In the gym, it's starting to lift, right? In the organizations, we are starting to see the programs produce what they need to produce. We're getting good candidates. We're hiring those candidates. Candidates are doing well. They're getting promoted. But really what we're hoping for is best. And by best, what we mean is it's not just installed, not just realizing, it's a repeatable model. It's a model that funds itself. It's a model that fuels itself. It's a virtuous cycle. At the beginning, the executive sponsors, the leaders are going to have to push and push and push. But when the system starts working, then you don't have to push. And that's what we're hoping to get. A self-reinforcing system where this is just the way we do business. So now you have a point of arrival, you have a point of departure, and that's when you smile and you say, oh my God, I want to do a lot of things, and I don't know how I'm going to close the gap. And this is what excites me the most about the Hispanic Promise, which is we are a community. Today of 300, hopefully very soon of 1,000 plus. But if 1,000 plus companies are making progress, we can codify how you actually make progress. And a lot of it is about data. I need to know what's happening. And analytics, I need to be able to use that data. A lot of it is about training and making sure that that training works for the population you're getting. A lot of it is about the programs that you set up. Part of it is, of course, about the culture. And some of it is about literally going outside of your doors. And, you know, today we've identified, I don't know, 35 modules. But as this community grows, there will be more. There will be better examples. There will be variations. And imagine a community where you can tap into that knowledge. So when you look at that point of departure, you look at that point of arrival, you're less scared. Because you actually have examples of how this can be done, and you actually have members of your community that can help you. Now, this is the what. And sometimes I would actually say more of the time, what's really hard is the how. The how is really complicated. Why? Because again, we have organizations are living systems. They already do things in a certain way. I know where to recruit, I recruit there. I know how to train the people I recruit there. I know how I've promoted for the last 20 years. And when you're trying to unwind the system tries to rewind itself against you. And that's why being really thoughtful about the how, the journey, is so important. And it starts with onboarding, right? Getting started and getting a little bit of escape velocity, right? Because otherwise you sign, you're a signatory. And that's just a commitment. And we're back at the Davos problem. Commitments that are not having the results that we need, which is what we're debating outside of this room. How do we all make progress? Of course, that point of departure, you have to understand where you're starting from. Right? And then set ambitions, create a roadmap, and actually mobilize. Now, this all sounds very reasonable to you, but I will tell you, I run the transformation practice at Bain. What's my advice? Number one, you have to have the right leader. You start with the wrong leader, this is not going to work. You need somebody with energy, vision, and the ability to mobilize people. You need to be honest about the point of departure. Don't kid yourself. It's never as bleak as you thought it was, And it's never as positive as you thought it was either. What is your true point of departure? You then have to be super clear of where you're trying to go, and you have to set interim goals. If your goals are set to 5 years from now, on year 2, you have no idea where you are. You need to be reminded of whether you're making progress with a shorter interval. The fourth thing, don't try to bite too much. If you try to do too many things at once, all organizations have limited capacity. When you're doing more than the limited capacity allows you, you do not make progress. And the last thing is you gotta get some quick wins. Nothing mobilizes an organization more than success. Success breeds more success, results breeds more results. Interestingly, what we heard from people who are making a lot of progress was that escape velocity was the most important thing. I need to get going quickly and I can't lose velocity. So as soon as we get started, we gotta make progress. Think of those, December, January commitments that maybe you are still keeping, but maybe not. The idea here is you keep that commitment. January, February, March, like you're on it. And so we literally worked with organizations that got escape velocity, and we said, how do you do it? And they said, look, in the first 30 days, I got an executive sponsor that I knew could actually give me all the air cover that I needed. And I got all the data that I needed to understand how we were doing. In the next 2 months, I created a cross-functional team. We did the assessment, and we set up the vision. And we as a core group were ready to go. And literally in the next 6 months, we just mobilized, right? We created a scaling and an amplification. So that's what we have today. We have a way for signatories to start and literally get going so that there's actually escape velocity. So there you have it. We have a framework that's infinitely, I believe, more helpful because it gives you the details that you need to understand where you're heading, where you're coming from, what to do, and how to do it. Now, promise, yes, it is a promise. Framework, yes, we have a framework. What's the true aspiration? I think it goes even beyond community. I think that this needs to be a movement. A movement so where we actually allow and enable corporate America and beyond to tap into that extraordinary resource that we call Latinos. Thank you.
And I cannot be more grateful about the commitment and the incredible work that we have done for, I think, that a year now with all your partners from Davos to Davos. And what really is exciting is not only that we have now a robust framework that is like the Sustainable Development Goals, but for inclusion, right? And for all of us, the leadership that you were talking about is here. These are the leaders that are going to go and champion their companies and make sure that this happens. And I've seen that again and again. So I'm really excited about you being here with us and having not only the organizations within corporate America, but also the partners that can help corporate America implement those plans that we have. From the rollout to ERGs, to Robert Rodriguez, to Shipe, making sure that we train Latinos, Latinas in tech with Rocio Ace, on making sure that Patricia Mota on Ace is partnering. We have the goals, the indicators, the best practices, and the partners. So we have it all, and we have a momentum. And the narrative that you were talking about is what I would like Sid Wilson to go through, because I think that all of us are going to be facing some questions about how do we deal with this this narrative of the backlash? How do we actually continue moving forward and not getting to a plateau? And I think that is moving away from it's a good thing to do or it's a charity or a DEI to opportunity and growth and progress. So Sid, why is this so important?
Yeah. Well, first let me start by saying buenos días, mi gente. And for those of you that are here for the first time, welcome to Davos. let me just first start by thanking Claudia. I met Claudia and Richard in 2018, 1 year when it was my first Davos. And we talked during that year and after the Hispanic Leadership Summit that year in 2018. We talked and said, we're going back to Davos for me for the second time. And that's when Claudia was like, well, I think we need to go there with a plan. And she says, I think we should do something called the Hispanic Promise. And it was born right here in Davos, quite frankly, right here in this room. When we had Microsoft hosting us, and Alan Murray, the head of Fortune magazine, was the moderator, and of course at that time the room was not the room the size that it is today, but we knew that if we keep the momentum going, it's going to get bigger, it's going to get wider, it's going to get more widely accepted. And I'm just so happy to see a packed room today, now that this is our 5th year doing this session, which is the only session completely dedicated for Latinos and the global impact for Latinos. I do want to recognize, of course, Hacer is only as strong as our team. We have 16 members that are here in Davos. I do want to recognize our 16 members, and some of them are just recording. I'm not asking you to stand up because they might disrupt their recordings, but we're so thankful for our team members that are here. Maybe scouring the promenade and taking a divide and conquer strategy. And we're also powered by a great board, and what's so great is how we can work and collaborate together. Certainly a member of the We All Human delegation is also one of them, is a member of our board of directors. Miguel Alemany, the CEO for SHIP, and thank you for your leadership, not only to the delegation, but also on the Hacer board of directors. And so many great leaders that I see here. Martin Cabrera, who I admire, he's the CEO of the largest Hispanic-owned investment firm in the whole country. And someone that I admire for over 25 years, Michelle Cabrera, who I know I see her, who was at this in the 1990s when there weren't many Latinos here, and we appreciate her leadership. But the question is why? Why Davos? Why is so important that we have this unified strategy? And many of you have been asking this question, which early on was a question that we were being asked, like, why do this in Davos? And this year, having had dozens of meetings this week, this is a message we should all be sharing. Number one is, let's look at the power of the U.S. Latino economy. When companies and leaders come to Davos, they think about globalization, and we know there's a lot of things, AI, and a year or two it was blockchains, and it was always something different. But the one thing that's a constant is that our U.S. Latino economy continues to grow faster than every single G20 country in the world. And when I talk to a CEO, and I share with them, talk about your globalization strategy, and they'll say, yeah, we're going to Turkey and India and South Korea and other areas. I said, well, what if I named you a country that has the following characteristics? It's the 5th largest economy in the world. It's dollar denominated, so there's no currency risk. If we were rated by the bond rating agencies, we'd be AAA rated like many sovereign countries. We are English dominant. We're the 2nd largest Spanish speaking country in the world. We're in a strong regulatory environment, so there's no regulatory risk. And when you look at all of these dynamics and where we are as an average age of 28, a low age of 18, and continue to grow faster, which reminds you that the women in this group, Latinas, is somewhere around 11th to 13th largest economy in the world. As you're thinking about your globalization strategy from not only a risk-adjusted basis, but also from a sustainable growth basis, which country would you invest in a country like that? And of course, they're like, well, yeah, is it you know, is it Turkey? Is it India? Is it South Korea? Is it Germany? Is this? I said it's the U.S. Latino community. That's the power of our economy. Think about the fact that if the U.S. Latino economy were to stop spending, it wouldn't just lead to just a U.S. economic collapse. It would lead to a global economic collapse. When you think about what's happening, all the geodynamics of what's happening with China, what's happening in other areas of the world, here's the reality, is that when the U.S. Latino economy is spending, it has a global economic impact. And that's the reason we want to ensure that we're sharing this message here at the World Economic Forum events in Davos. And it's so important why we be here. But despite all of those incredible economic benefits of our economy, there's also the challenges that we see today. We know that only 5.1% of Fortune 500 board seats are held by Latinos. Only 1.2% are held by Latinas. There's only one Latina CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And when we look at the pipeline, particularly the power pipeline, CMO, COO, CFO, General Counsel, CISO, those positions that we know are the pipelines that lead to becoming CEOs, we know that there's a massive disparity. And that was even before we started seeing what happened last year, continuing this year, which is the DEI pushback, from certain elements within our society who want to see things the way they once were when we were left out.
And see, on that point, on the anti-DEI and the
Yeah.
narrative, because I want to open it up.
Oh, sure.
So let's, I want to wrap up on our side, but so what is the right narrative? Like, so that we can get aligned, not only on the numbers and the data that we have, so how do we talk about this? Like, how do we talk about this in a sense that is not only on the inclusion to feel good, but as a growth strategy?
Well, the first part is that our position is that this is not a year to slow down. It's a year to double down.
Right.
To double down on DEI. And because if you think about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and if you think of what's the antithesis of that, if you are opposed to that, then what you're saying is that you want one homogeneous group that's there, and inequality and exclusion. And so when you talk to companies saying, either you're a supporter of DEI or you're anti-DEI. There's no in between on this.
But may I,
Yes.
because I've heard my husband who runs a PR company and makes a living.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that. We like the dress and all of that, thank you. But no, but the reality is that you've been advising CEOs and companies to make sure that they don't swing with they don't go with swings, that they stay on principle and values. Can you just like talk to us about like what great ways do you talk about, like saying like double down on DEI because it is the right, like I just don't want to make I want to make sure that we're understanding the right narrative, and then we're gonna open it up before closing. I want to celebrate that we're united, that we have incredible leaders like Maria Teresa Comar here on Voto Latino, that we're celebrating the progress we're making, that we're united, but also equipped with right language. And I think that the articulation of a narrative is important.
Okay, so it's easier if I don't talk to the back of my head. So my advice to you is Latinos are DEI plus. Think about what I'm saying. It's not DEI, it's DEI plus, because for PepsiCo, Latinos are 75% of the growth in their consumer market for the next decade. That's a huge opportunity. So also, Sid's correct, way underrepresented in the C-suite. And I think Latinos also have to have more self-confidence. When they get to that C position, they should want to be to the CEO, not be happy to just be here. I can, yes I can. And I think also Claudia's got a really good idea of setting up a CEO kind of training, just as, with Mauricio. I'm talking before it's already done, but it's,
So like a goal, yeah.
but it's a goal, because this mentoring thing of someone who has been a CEO, to bring the next, this is something you as a community are still learning. And then the last point I would say is make sure that the companies that you go back and see support you in being in philanthropic activities. Because it's really important, if you want to be in the C-suite, that you sit on boards and that people see you at Hybrid and Struggles and say, that one could be, next. Because if you're not seen, it's hopeless. then you're not in the group. And so stand firm on DE&I, but don't be defensive about it. Be offense, DEI plus.
So stay there. So DEI plus, a hockey stick growth, right? Like all of us see that, like Martin Cabrera said, it's like hockey stick growth. But also that while you might swing with the fashion of the moment, your consumers and your employers won't. And they will want to see that you're steady on your plans and on your vision, and that you don't have like a movable moral, because we don't want to work in a place that, like might turn back or not. Anything else?
Yeah, I think also, you're a positive community. You're not a, we're gonna litigate this and all this other, you're just gonna work harder than the other guys and make it work.
So thank you so much. I want to open it up, Sid, if that's okay.
One quick thing I just want to reiterate, which just reinforcing something Richard said. And I really do want to thank Richard. Richard and I serve on various CEO councils, and I'm really thankful that, that we're speaking at these gatherings in front of CEOs who are decision makers. And I see Richard in action doing that, so I'm very thankful for your leadership, Richard. But one thing I'll just say super quickly is that as you're out there promoting DI+, make sure that we're also promoting that companies need to be intentional. And I'll say we kind of DI square, like diversity, equity, inclusion times intentionality. Because what is anything times zero? Zero. You need intentionality that is a fuel to get the DI going. And these are the things that we need to continue to promote. But as people try to ask questions, make sure that we are visible, make sure we're raising our hands, make sure we're declaring, so that way we're doing this together, it's gonna be so important for us to the needle for inclusion.
And I think that we have now the tools and the framework and the pledge to do it. We have the community, we have the first start of the 320 companies. We just need to make sure that everybody feels equipped with an articulated narrative and with everything that we have. Miguel.
I was just gonna say, smart companies know that DEI is about dollars and cents. If you don't have the variety of points of views and cultures and approaches to your solutions, you're gonna undermine your own success. And if you look at top Fortune 25 companies, they don't have any issues with DEI. It doesn't matter what the law says about DEI. They're gonna go and ask for diverse talent, so that diverse talent will give you better solutions. That's one angle that we need to exploit. Show how much better the company will do if they have a diverse workforce. And I'm not just talking Hispanics, I'm doing diversity in general. Gender diversity, race diversity, whatever it is. Unique differences. That always comes up with a better solution.
Thank you so much. I want to open it up. I would like to call on, it's so important that we celebrate where we are. We're not victimizing ourselves. We're moving forward and we're great. I would like to ask Martin Cabrera, if you don't mind, but also if you guys have commitments, if you're ready, like Robert Rodriguez, to say I'll take the Hispanic Promise to all my employee resource groups or something like that, feel empowered to do it, and I'd like to hear from you. And maybe Sandra, yes.
I think it's great. I think everything that we're doing here is just coming together. But I think for DEI, look, it cuts both ways. I think as people see it just as growth. And I tell folks that, look, we could be aliens, we can be purple with 4 heads, but if that's the community that's growing and is taking off, that's who companies want to do business with and work with and support, because there's a growth opportunities. Latinos are providing growth to those companies, whether they're tech companies, manufacturing companies, and that's it. It's not about handouts or anything like that. We're workers. We earn the business. We do big deals as well. For us to be considered in different categories, but we have to change mentality. It's almost a paradigm shift as well. We're not takers, we're givers to this country. We're many countries in the US, but it is that impact of who we are and to embrace it, but also to think much bigger. And it's not just DEI, we're beyond that. And we have to understand that and embrace it and what we do and how we grow the companies. that we are serving and growing the different economies, like in the US, but beyond that as well. So
And it-
I think this is great in what everyone's doing.
and this is the Latino Goldman Sachs of our community, a poster child, there you go. Maria Teresa, I want to ask you about like the importance of the moment where we are. Why is it more important than ever that we're not only energized, we're organized and like taking action?
Claudia, I was just meant to listen, to learn. So I would say, Claudia, before I say, first of all, it's wonderful to see this room. The first time that you put this together, I think there was about 10 of us. And what you've been able to do in the last couple of years shows leadership, commitment, and doing it in Davos and trying to find a voice is not easy. So I'm incredibly impressed. Mohamed, anything you need, I am there. For folks that don't know, I co-founded Voto Latino in 2004. It was right after the census said that Latinos were the second largest population of Americans. What they failed to say is the majority of us were under the age of 18 years old. In 2018, we became the second largest voting possibility. And I say this because it's not that Latinos don't vote, it's that we have a large voter registration gap because we are so young. And if you often ask why we're in this moment in the United States specifically, it's because the most common age among whites is 58 years old. The most common age among African Americans is 37. And who can tell me the most common age among Latinos? 11. Because you and I have had this conversation. We're 11 years old. And so what we are talking about here is making sure that we are in the C-suite, is because we're preparing America for our leadership. And if our leadership is at the table, then we are not missing the moment of the Americas. Because we are of a unique, I like to say that we are the super Latino because we have the history of the Aztecs and the Mayans, and we have the legacy of the moon and of Apple. We are on all the spaces. And because of that, we demand respect. Because I know that our communities have earned it. I'm sure we all have different immigrant stories. I can tell you my immigrant story. It'll resonate with all of you. But I am the first of millions in the United States. And so as we prepare for this moment, what gets me very excited is that we have roughly 6 million Latino youth that have turned 18 since the last election. And I see that as opportunity.
Right.
Because it's time for us to be driving that agenda. So thank you so much, Claudia, for the space.
You.
But more importantly, let's get it done.
Robert, I hope this comes with a commitment. I want some-
Absolutely. So I work with hundreds of companies, helping them with their Latino talent initiatives and their employee resource groups. So absolutely, we'll bring the Hispanic Promise to all of them. You have my commitment to doing that.
Yeah.
A couple of things about the framework. As all of us are well aware, that people know that our community is a catalyst for economic growth. But I'm getting tired of companies doing a good job of selling us their products, but not doing a good job of hiring us, right? So they can find us when they sell us their products, but when it comes to hiring, also we're in business. So this framework, I think, is going to help them. Secondly, I loved how you put hiring on there, not recruiting. A lot of companies, when they come to me, say, Robert, we have a recruiting problem. We can't find a Latino. I'm like, no, you don't have a recruiting problem. You have a hiring problem. The company finds the talent, but they're not getting hired. So great job with that aspect. Also love kind of what I call the Google Maps approach. Like, hey, where are you starting from? Where do you want to get to? Once you know those two, now here's a framework to help you get there. Third thing, I'll share before I go. I love the best in class, right? Because a lot of companies I talk to is like, well, Robert, we're doing the best we can. I'm like, really? Let me show you what best we can looks like. And are you doing this? Nope. Are you doing this? Nope. Are you doing this? Nope. Then don't say you're doing the best we can. So having those best practices are going to be critical. And of course, the celebration, right? Let's really find opportunity to celebrate our culture, celebrate our heritage, and finally the resources and the tools. I think that's going great. So job well done. Way beyond here.
Thank you. We're gonna take 2 more, and then I'm gonna ask everybody to make a commitment and have a photo with your Hispanic Star pledge. I think that I wanted to talk to Juan and then Sandra, if you don't mind, at the end. I think that there was one more.
So I'm Juan Enriquez. You get what you tolerate. And one of the things that we don't celebrate is.
By the way, can you introduce yourself? He's one of the most important luminaries of the Latino community in academia, and I don't think that we know enough of you. So I want to say that you're a poster child of academia as well.
Thank you, but it's not, this isn't about me, it's about the community that I belong to. And I think a pillar that we don't celebrate is tech. And, you know, when you look at 24% of the S&P 500, it comes out of Southern California. And when you look at where the Latino child lives in tech, we don't celebrate. And there's places like Crossbridge. So Crossbridge is sending 50% of their low-income students to the top 35 colleges in the United States with a full 4-year, no take-back scholarship. And those kids are graduating in the top 5% of their class. And they're mostly in STEM. And we have to celebrate those kids. And then there's a series of good business teams here that have been formed throughout Latin America by people like Adriana Hinich, who is now teaching at UCSD. There's a couple of dives at Stanford. There are people working at Nobel Prize winners. And as we recognize and celebrate the Latino community and our great heritage and food and poetry and just friendship and that thing that makes us laugh of being people, we also have to celebrate our science. We don't celebrate the people who changed more lives in this world than anybody else. And they did it in Mexico. Those were St. Grants, giving the pill to women, giving control and having a career. Right now, that's right outside. And so there's a lot of examples of Hispanics in science, in technology. They operate at the very top level. We have to celebrate those people. We have to identify those people because those are kids who come from Michoacán. They come from Oaxaca. They went to the you never see them. And we've got to find those kids. And those are the kids you want to promote because that's where the power is. That's where the income's being generated.
And before you go, can I get a little commitment pledge from your side to help us get this Hispanic Promise also in academia so that MIT, Harvard, University of Chicago sign it as well?
Yeah, I mean, look, when you find smart kids from your employees, have them go to Crossbridge. Crossbridge is half of the low-income students coming into Yale. These are people whose mothers are housekeepers, who are single, and there's no takebacks and there's no excuses. These are the best of the best. Let's celebrate the best of the best.
Got it. Okay, Sandra and then Pilar, and then we're gonna close with
Nothing not calling on this last minute. Hi, Clay. First of all, thank you for your commitment because you actually never give up and it's incredible. Some of us do it loudly, some of us do it a little bit more quietly. I'm Sandra Campos. I am also first generation and I am right now I sit on 6 boards. I've been CEO for 15 years in the fashion retail consumer space. The 6 boards that I sit on, I'm the only Latino. I'm the only person that ever brings up diversity initiatives in any meeting, and I bring it up in every meeting because it's my responsibility. I actually took one of the roles on one of the boards as a public company because I was the only, it's a global company. I'm the only woman on the board and I'm the only American. And I said, I need to do this because I need others to see that this is a possibility. And that's actually a big portion of what I spend my time on and thinking of. So I wanted to focus on a couple of things that have been mentioned. One is in terms of youth and age. I think it starts even before the recruiting and hiring. I have 3 kids who are in college and it starts there. It's super hard for one of my kids who's economics at Brown University trying to get into the financial industry. Super hard. I have connections. I'm getting those connections, but it's still incredibly hard. So even giving them those opportunities, the network and the access, we all know access is an issue. No matter if you're an entrepreneur trying to raise capital, if you're in college at a good university, but you still don't have, the parents whose name's on the door. So we have to start earlier and again, celebrate the wins, celebrate those who are actually doing and performing, no matter where they are. Start earlier. And I would say, even in terms of boards, because I am one of the 1%, because you're right, it's only 1% of Latinos on corporate boards. I'd love to have this information to share with those companies because I want to make sure that we continue to spread that word, to continue to really spread this information, get it out there. And whether we do it loudly or quietly, we all have our ways of doing it.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's close with Pilar, if you don't mind. If you can pass it on, Martin, to Pilar. And Pilar, and then maybe just the closing words before. I I want to have a photo with all of you, like holding these. We're going to have the camera here and there as a sign of commitment that we're going to take us forward from the boards to the schools to the non-for-profits to all the communities we have, because I think that we have a real driver of growth for us to do it. So Pilar.
Claudia, congratulations for a great event. This is my second time joining you. And I think even year on year, the amount of progress you have made is tremendous. So thank you for that.
The highest Latina in Cargill.
So I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer for Cargill, the first Latina on our company's executive team. And I'm very, very proud of the fact that I have champions, mentors, and sponsors who have given me an opportunity and say, hey, you can move up, you can move up, you can do a lot more things and have greater responsibilities. So maybe I'll say two things. I think we also have an opportunity to educate leaders within our companies. And I think, Richard, you talked about educating CEOs. We have a responsibility to raise awareness and to say, here's why this is important. And here's why we as a company need to make a difference. You talk about DE&I plus, fully agree with you. And I think we need to do more about educating our leaders, raising awareness, and talk about the why do we need to do this so we close the gap. The second thing, and I mentioned this last year as well in the panel, the support that we get from our partners, spouses, is fundamental. And I mentioned my story about 24 years ago when I moved to the US, and I told my husband, hey, he's from the US, and I said, hey, I really want to change my accent. I want to sound more American. I want to sound so people can understand what I say. And he listened to me for like 5 minutes, and then he said, why would you do that? You are Pilar Cruz with that beautiful Colombian accent, and that makes you who you are. So you're not taking the class. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not. And I'm so proud of my accent because it makes me who we are or who I am. And it gives me an opportunity with customers to talk about PepsiCo. We talk to our customers all the time, Nestle, PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, McDonald's. And the first question they ask me is, where are you from? And I'm always saying, I am a very proud Colombian Latina and happy to be here. So congratulations, and thank you everybody for what we are doing to support the Latino community.
Well, I think you've heard it all, right? Companies that will win in the market will access the broadest swath of consumers and access the broadest swath of talent. We could take the Hispanic Promise only to just help corporate America be great. Now, in doing so, you're going to propel an entire community to its full potential. You might do it quietly or loudly. It doesn't matter. But you heard her say, you can't multiply by zero. You're all leaders here, and we are the force multiplier. So.
There you go. I want to thank, let's do it. Yes, I want to thank you so much. And I want to thank my partner in crime, Sid Wilson, whose baby we were was born here 5 years ago, and to all the backers of the Hispanic Promise for making this happen. I want to make sure that you know the next steps are to sign the pledge if you don't have, to partner with us. The World Human commitment, my commitment of my organization is to keep the momentum going, to keep the traction, to make sure that it doesn't get cold, that keep it warm all the time, that we sex it up, that we make it cool, so that more and more companies feel and more organizations feel that this is the place where people have to belong. And I want to invite everybody to become a change maker, to become a champion of our community, because this is our time. Thank you so much for being with us. And okay, so now I can have the camera team and this way, and then all of us can gather in the center. We hold them, like we're going to hold our side. There you go. Venga, vamos. Juan, vení. Do you have everybody has like a pledge? Here, yeah. No, I do. We need more pledges. Everybody has a pledge? Do you have more, Carol? Everybody has one? Go to the photo.
The ones in the back, you can break it a little bit better. Una, dos. Hispanic time!
All right, let's do that again, guys. Here comes the She's gonna say Hispanic star, and we say ready time. Yes? All right.
Hispanic time!
Ready time! Woo! Thank you.
Oye, pues qué bien que lo pudiste a ver.
¿Tú dónde estás?